you grew up at the same time as me, the original G1 Transformers was probably not your Transformers. When I was young, it wasn't all about cars and jets, it was about beasts. Beast Wars is one of the most fondly remembered parts of the whole toy line, and considering it basically saved Transformers from some pretty dodgy years in the 90s, I can see why. So, in celebration of Beast Wars' return to toy shelves in the Transformers Kingdom toy line, and their debut on the big screen in next year's Rise of the Beasts, it seems only fitting to review a collection of excellent Maximals. Fraz, maximize! Look at this little guy. I don't know why some people find rats scary. I think they're really cute. They didn't even try to make this guy look menacing. The original toy had like burning red eyes and sharp teeth, but I think on this one they accepted that he just wasn't going to be a threatening character. Posability in this mode is basically nil, which for a toy of this size in its beast mode is fair enough. I would trade a more articulated beast mode for a more solid beast mode any day of the week. He can rotate his little rat feet, so he's not technically a brick. I wish they splurged for some pink paint on his little tail there. As it is, it blends a bit too much into the body. For a figure this small, his transformation is actually really good, and probably a lot more complex than you'd think at first glance. For Kingdom, Hasbro decided to make the beast modes more based on real-life animals, while their robot modes are heavily modeled on their CGI models from the Beast Wars cartoon. I think they did a stellar job. This rangy little bot has all the important details unlocked. Every time I fiddle with him, his exposed brain really draws my eye. All of the Season 1 Beast Wars cast had a little bit of a body horror thing going on. He's plenty posable. The only thing he's lacking is a waist swivel, but I'll give him a pass considering how small he is. His little pistol is very show accurate, but obviously too small to accommodate fire blasts. I'll give it a pass, once again. This guy was a great way to start the core class, size class out on the right foot. It feels like a far more full-featured bot than the Legends class figures from the Prime Wars trilogy. We're all gonna die. Check out this cool cat. This is the most Cheetor has probably ever resembled an actual cheetah. His original toy was a complete chunkster, and even his masterpiece figure was a bit on the hefty and broad-chested side to emulate the appearance of a real-life animal. Can't complain about a lack of posability this time around. He's got legs for days and he knows how to use them. Probably would have benefited from a head swivel, but he's still a dynamic feline nonetheless. Much like Rat Trap, he's a bit more cute than Transformers tend to be, but he's still got grace for days. And his textured fur and spotted details are the cat's meow. The transformation isn't terribly complex, but it is satisfying and fun. I particularly like the way his chest works and it folds out into his two robot mode arms. His lean proportions in cheetah mode give him a more skinny appearance than Transformers usually have, who are a bunch of boxy bots as a general rule. Honestly, I'm into it. I think these more slender proportions fit his youthful and somewhat arrogant character well. And his posability means you can get some real emotion out of this guy. His tail turns into a whip weapon inspired by his original Transmetal toy, which I think fits him perfectly. Honestly, whips are really cool, and you rarely see them as a Transformers weapon, so I'm all for it. He's a very satisfying package, and honestly, I can't recommend him enough for any and all Cheetor enthusiasts. Bird Transformers are kind of a rarity, so I'm glad to report that this one is an absolute treasure. What to do with the robot mode legs is always a problem for this kind of Transformers, but the solution they found here is one of the better ones ever. Boy, she's a beauty. Those posable wings and sculpted feathers give her an absolutely avian appearance. More of an involved transformation than is typical for a deluxe. Everything takes a little bit more force to snap into place than you might think, but it does result in this great robot mode, so overall it's a breeze. Airazor here is a great. I especially love how her wings fold up to give her a more proportionate pair of wings in robot mode. Although with wings these size, I don't think she would be able to fly. Posability's great, save for a bit of a loose head which results in a little bit more wobble than I'd like, and leg joints that don't snap into place as firmly as I'd prefer. The pair of guns and or bombs she comes with are quite a look. I could definitely see her raining death from above on the battlefield with these beauties. Airazor sadly was one of the more neglected Beast Wars characters, so I'm glad to see her get some spotlight with a toy of this caliber. Get an absolute eyeful of this hefty rhino. I don't know enough about rhino biology to say that this is supposed to be any particular species of rhinoceros, but but you know, he has the general vibe down. As is usually the case with beast modes, not much posability to be had. You can open his mouth for some realistic foliage chomping action though, assuming that is what rhinos eat. Once again, I'm not a rhino scientist. That transformation is not one of the more forgiving ones. You must respect the order of operations. If you screw it up, you could break this guy. But honestly, the transformation is really good as long as you keep in mind which order you're supposed to do everything. He's certainly very wide, and while he's not spot on the cartoon model, he's close enough. In terms of visual impact, I'm glad he's so bulky because these tiny guns don't really have much on his on-screen god killers. He's got all the posability you'd expect, but his shoulders are a little bit on the weird side. Not bad, but it is worth mentioning. As much as I like this guy, I feel like he's not quite on the same level engineering and appearance-wise as the other Kingdom Maximals. He's like a solid 8.5, while most of them are more like a 9.5 or even a 10. Still though, how could I not recommend him? He's no white Cheetor repaint this time around. For the first time ever in the main line, I think, don't quote me on that, Tigertron is his very own toy. Which makes sense because a tiger's a lot more broad and beefy than a spindly cheetah. Not sure how I feel about the more creamy highlights. Apparently it's to better simulate the appearance of an actual white tiger, but I would prefer a more unrealistic pearly white. His broad chest and thick limbs lend him a real menace, which is fitting for the biggest of the big cats. The transformation is mostly a treat, with the exception of the side panels that need to flex a bit more than I'm comfortable with. But hey, I've transformed him like 100 times since I've got him, and there's no signs of stress marks, so I guess the materials are up to the task. Hello, handsome! I've always loved Tigertron's design, especially his colors. That minty green and those pearlescent whites complement each other beautifully. He's a bendable sort of fella, especially his elbows, which have more of a flex than most. His massive head is very expressive as well. He even packs his iconic gut gun with a side dish of wit to go with it. The tail's weapon storage is of course just the beast mode tail, but the only way they give you to store the gun is a bit more vulgar than I'd really like to talk about. He's got a nice size and heft. You can really feel your Voyager price point at work with this guy, and he's a great package. Old Chopper Face. They wisely decided to go with the Jurassic Park school of design rather than the realistic feathered dino. I know all the beast modes are supposed to be realistic, but I will not accept a feathered Dinobot. Nothing really to complain about posability-wise. His tail's maybe a bit rigid, but he can claw and jaw with the best of them. That brown and striped hide are so Dinobot, and I would say his paint job was just about perfect if it was not for the fact that mine's slightly wall-eyed. Out of all the Kingdom Maximals, this guy has the most impressive transformation to me from a technical perspective. The way his hip panels fold out to create his big broad chest, and the dino arms fold in to fill in the gaps, it's beautiful. Dinobot is honestly the best Transformers character ever, and this toy does him complete justice. As good as all of the head sculpts and likenesses on these guys have been, seriously, this one is something really special. He comes with his compulsory tail weapon, I don't know what else to call it, and his cool sword, which is purple, again. The Masterpiece one was purple too. His sword isn't purple! A warrior must be posable, and Dinobot is that and then some. His hands being able to flex give him a bit of a Shakespearean flair, which is perfect for the character. Dinobot is so beloved, and I feel after his kind of small and not particularly good toy from the original Beast Wars, this guy finally does him justice. Better keep this guy away from the Godzilla collection. He's about to make me go ape-spit. Optimus Primal isn't that hard of a character, since an ape is already basically humanoid as it is, but they put in a lot of work to make this distinct from his robot. The sculpted fur, musculature, and face are so alive, I'm kind of afraid he's going to start throwing a barrel at me, or one of the other iconic ape attacks. If you prefer him knuckle walking, the toy's got that covered too. And most of the posability from robot mode carries over to this mode, so you've got a lot of options. This is one top ape. If he was just a toy gorilla, I think he would be kind of fun in his own right, but this toy has a lot more to offer. His transformation is pretty simple, as Optimus Primals do tend to be, but it's got just enough steps to keep you interested. I particularly like the monkey muscle flipping over to form those robot chunks. Well, that's just prime. Get a load of Big Bot. He looks like the spitting image of his cartoon model, and he's got all of the posability that you need to keep Optimus nice and dynamic. He might seem a bit skimpy on the accessories with just these badass scimitars, but don't be. He's packing flip-out arm and shoulder cannons that can all fit fire blasts. This is exactly what you'd want for a Generations Optimus Primal. This figure really lives up to his legacy. Kingdom has been a treat for Beast Wars fans like me, and the fun shows no signs of stopping, with figures like Tarantulas and Inferno set to roll out later in the Legacy line. And we're going to see the beasts on the big screen. Fraz out.